Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another exciting Tristan Tries video. Today we will be discussing the Asus Zephyrus G14 2020 edition, and what I've experienced and learned with this being my main system for the past year and a half. To begin with, I'll get into the specs of this little system. My G14 is a 2020 model equipped with a Ryzen 7 4800HS, 16GB of 3200 MHz RAM, and a 1660 Ti Max Q, which I got for around 1400 Canadian dollars plus tax, which is approximately 1100 USD based on the current exchange rate. For I/O, on the left hand side we have the power plug-in for charging the laptop, an HDMI 2.0 port that is connected to the integrated GPU, a USB-C port that has both DisplayPort and power delivery, which is connected to the 1660 Ti dedicated GPU, as well as a combination headphone microphone jack. On the right hand side we have two USB 3 ports, the standard style, and one USB-C port. Altogether, this is a pretty solid I/O set, with my only real gripe being there's not a USB port on this side. Additionally, there's only one NVMe SSD slot, which was originally a 500GB SSD, which I upgraded to a 1TB in this video. Of the 16GB of DDR4 RAM that is included on the device, 8GB of it is soldered to the motherboard itself, meaning it cannot be upgraded, while the other 8GB are included on the stick shown here, which are possible to be replaced with a larger capacity stick. So, an important question that I think many of you will have is why I selected the G14. So I chose the G14 because of the combination of the size alongside with the power. Previously, my primary portable device was the Surface Pro that I had reviewed back in May 2020. And I was looking for something a little faster for games and more useful for like the data analytics and such that I was doing for school. I was after some good battery life, as well as something that could do VR through the HDMI 2.0 or DisplayPort. Additionally, I felt like it was time to get at least a 120Hz monitor on my laptop if I couldn't get one over 1080p. Thus, after doing a lot of research, finding a lot of different laptops that would fit most of the bill, only to fall short on one or the other requirement, I found that the G14 checked enough boxes with only missing a minor nice-to-have such as Thunderbolt 3. With that in mind, you might be wondering why I chose this model over the top-tier Ryzen 9 2060 Max Q variant from the same year. Well, when I picked this laptop up in September 2020, in Canada, the premium for a 2060 version was around $500 more than the 1660 Ti, despite the performance difference being really only around a 10% difference. That placed the 2060 version at close to $2,000, 1900 plus tax, which was substantially out of my budget. Now that we've heard my reasoning, let's get started with how my experience has been with the device. For starters, being a super light laptop has been amazing. With COVID being a thing over the last year or so, I definitely haven't been traveling as much as I normally would, but that hasn't stopped this device from traveling a fair amount. Gameplay wise, I've been pretty impressed with the performance of the device, with it running every game that I've tried to play on it, with many even running at fairly high settings. For a significant amount of time, I was actually using this as my pseudo desktop, powering a ultra-wide that was a 3440 by 1440 resolution, and it ran games on that surprisingly well, with medium to high settings depending on the game. So while I wouldn't recommend this laptop specifically to play games at a higher resolution, I was impressed with its performance nonetheless. Gaming on this device is a pretty solid experience. As a gamer, I mostly focus on RTS games with some Twitch-based shooters, and my primary games during my owning of this system have been Titanfall 2, Mount & Blade Bannerlord, and Anno 1800. Now, each of these games run very well on the laptop, despite being pretty intensive, with various settings being used for each. It's important to note that the 120Hz screen does actually have fairly low response times, as noted in Jared's tech review of the 2060 Max Q variant, which shares the same screen as the version that I have. But since I am not a big competitive gamer, this is not really that big of a deal to me. And that's the benchmarks. I will say that I did play a few less intensive games off of a 16-watt USB-C charger through the power delivery, and I didn't experience any real problems with performance, but it did seem that that may have caused some additional battery wear that I was not expecting. Regarding heat, I typically ran it with the CPU turbo disabled, and you can easily maintain about a 71 temps on the GPU and CPU, at the cost of a very minor amount of performance if you're only playing games, or high 80s with the turbo enabled. Both of these are within spec, and the system did not down throttle very much at all. But I preferred having the temps lowered personally. Physically, I found that the system would get reasonably hot to the touch, but the location was not where I rested my hand, and the laptop actually rises up to allow additional airflow, meaning that most of the heat passes out down on around the desk, rather than somewhere where it would be more obnoxious. Working or doing schoolwork on the G14, though, is one of the areas where it really shined. The extremely solid keyboard has enabled myself to maintain my typing speed compared to a mechanical keyboard that I use on the desktops, with the slight elevation caused by the raise for cooling. Actually helped a lot with ergonomics for myself. The Ryzen 7 4800HS chewed through pretty much everything I threw at it productivity-wise, making short work of data analytics software that I was running, and essays or other schoolwork that I found myself. And I found myself choosing to use the laptop keyboard more than my mechanical keyboard more often than not. Additionally, the battery life of the system was extremely helpful, with the device maintaining at least 5 hours consistently after I followed a Reddit guide from the G14 subreddit, which I'll link in the description. And it's important to note also that the 5 hours were with my Asus limiting the charge capacity to 80% because I knew that I would be unplugging and replugging the laptop in a fair amount. This limiter did make checking the battery wear a lot more difficult though, and since you need to fully charge and discharge a laptop in order to see what the wear is at, to which I found that currently it is showing at around 25% wear, which, given the amount of time I've had the system, seems rather high. So for comparison, I checked a Surface Pro 1, which I had around, and the battery wear was only 10% despite it having almost 9 more years of additional usage. As I mentioned previously, this might be because of the power delivery USB-C port that I used for a bit, and while gaming, and I think that might have caused the additional battery issues. Despite the battery longevity concerns, for gamers or even just students who want a powerful, strong laptop without the back strain of a powerful, strong laptop, the G14 is definitely a good option. Now for VR games, I found that it handled my primary game of Beat Saber very well, but it struggled with some more GPU-intensive games such as Blade and Sorcery, where it had some inconsistent performance despite me overclocking the GPU within Armory Crate. This may be the fault of the game itself more than the laptop, but it was virtually unplayable, since the increased risk of motion sickness caused by the low frame rate caused me to feel nauseous a lot more easily. For reference, I was primarily using a Windows Mixed Reality HP headset for VR, but I've since swapped to an Oculus Quest 2 that I have yet to try with it. An area where the G14 has a bit of a problem, though, is with coil whine coming from the right hand side speaker grill. Here, there's a bit of a high-pitched noise that has been reported on several of the 2020 G14s. I'm not sure if this is a problem with other future models, but it is definitely one with the 2021s. And that noise can be fairly annoying for people with sensitive ears, especially when the backlight is off, which is when it is the most noticeable. Personally, I did not find it that big of a deal breaker, but that is something to be aware of. One area that should be considered is the audio of the laptop. The speakers on the laptop are actually fairly good. I would say that they are probably some of the best laptop speakers that I've heard so far, and they definitely add in a lot of punch to like gunshots, particularly in Titanfall 2 when you're shooting with like the tone or something. There's a lot of satisfying oomph to the audio. So now to bring it back to something more today focused. Would I recommend purchasing this laptop in 2022? And I think that's a difficult question. With the arrival of the 30 series notebook laptop, specifically the 3060 equipped G14, the value proposition for the 2020 version is certainly weakened. In addition, they're also coming out with more modern G14s. I believe that there was recently a new video for the 2022 G14 that was equipped with a 6800X that performs substantially better than the 3060 equipped G14, meaning that it would probably knock this out of the park. Despite the newer systems offering a strong value proposition, causing the 2020 version to be severely weakened from a purchasing today perspective, I would still say that it's probably worth considering if it's under like 1,000, probably even less than that at this point. Then for the 2060 model, then it's definitely worth considering over the 3050 version of the G14. If the 3060 or the newer version is fairly close in pricing to the 2060 version, then it's definitely obviously superior to go with the newer laptop. In that regard, I would say that it was worth the purchase back in September 2020, since I was able to enjoy this system for the last 2 years throughout school and fun, and I've been by and large quite satisfied with it. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, feel free to check out my other videos. They'll be linked right around here and probably over here. And if you feel so inclined, slap that subscribe button to be alerted to all my future content. Thanks again. Goodbye.